Sam Ramlu. Sam, welcome.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, morena.
Morena.
How are you
Thanks
this
for having
morning?
me. I'm good.
Brilliant. Are you? Under control?
Always?
Are you always in control? Do you write lists?
Yes. Yes. I don't know if I'd say that I'm always under control, but I like to feel like I should be.
Which is amazing given how much you have on the go, right? Were you all like, have you always been like hyper under
I
control?
was gonna
Or have
say
you,
some other words, but control freak, yes. Yes. I have lists and then I have shorter lists of the lists. So I don't know what that tells you.
have you learnt, like, have you harnessed that skill to handle more volume?
Oh, I don't know if I could ever harness that skill, to be honest. I think part of kind of what drives me is having the volume. It sounds
Yeah.
really weird, but if my list is too short, I feel something feels wrong or off, you know?
What do they say? Give a busy person another thing to do, and you
Yeah,
know it'll get done.
I'm not saying it's a good way to be. It's just, that's how my mind works. Yeah.
Hey, so I should do a few bit of housekeeping. So please subscribe to the Manaki YouTube channel. If you want to join the Manaki community, come to manaki.io, follow us on the social. And these are a series of talks we've been doing about the meta world and the Web3 world, which has been an amazing opportunity for me, but also for, I think, the wider small business community in Aotearoa, as we've chatted with David Yu, Aaron McDonald, Jerome, Janine Granger, so many amazing people. It's been like me going down into my own little rabbit hole. And do you know, Sam, I spoke to another person today, just on a phone call, and he was going on about NFTs. And I was like, how many fluffs do you own? 7 fluffs.
Oh, wow.
I was like, crazy. That's easy. When the price goes up, it just sells one, right?
Yeah.
When my fluff goes up, I can't sell it because then I don't have a fluff.
I think that's part of it, isn't it? Like that there's a real sense of, not to say this is for everyone, but a real sense of FOMO sometimes. And so keeping up with that, very much so in this space,
Rational or irrational?
Look, I think not always rational, I think. But I think that's also part of what, as a society, has almost kind of driven us to kind of be like, if you're not part of this, then what?
You're missing out.
You're missing
So,
out.
a couple of things I've missed, other than the fact that I welcomed you. And the other thing to say is that you're MD and founder of Method, and also M Theory, and we have 818 shared connections on LinkedIn.
That's insane. That's how long we've been in this space, I think, Andy, is probably more what that shows.
How many of those, if we sat down and looked at the mutual connections, how many of them would we know?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, yeah. I know connections, I think in this space especially, I'm always quite generous with probably who I connect with. Because I think about kind of from when I was growing up in this space, and maybe those connections would have been helpful to me. So I probably,
which is a pretty awesome attitude, because you've been at it for 20 years in this space. And one of the things that you smile, but one of the things that you wear wisdom well, Sam, right?
Thanks,
But
thank you.
one of the things that when I thought about today's chat, that I'm kind of interested to dive into is obviously a little bit about, because with a lot of people, when I do the research and I look at you, it's not like you were like, rail, it's 2019, let's get into the Web3 world. You've had a history there. But the other aspect to it, which I'm super interested in, is building a services engine and an agency in and around the space. That's that's interesting. And of course, we want to find out about the new game with Sony PlayStation. I didn't know whether that was like public.
It is now. No, it is.
So I suppose, where do we start? Why don't I start here? How do you see the Web3 meta world right now?
I mean, it's just really interesting because in this space, I guess we've been living it for such a long time. It doesn't feel like new talk, and a lot of what
For
we do in this.
you,
No, to me, exactly. And I guess that's a lot of where we are. We're always at the cusp of technology. So part of that is almost has been a bit of a hindrance for us because we're so far ahead sometimes. It's actually, we're ahead of people actually realizing and doing anything about it. So, we've been working in the VR space for, it'll be coming up to almost 10 years, sort of when the first Oculus Dev Kit was around. We were one of we played with that a lot, but we were so early. And across our kind of 18, 19, 20 years now, we've been always so early ahead of the curve that actually at that time, no one's needed what we were delivering or what we were really passionate about. And then some of those things actually, by the time they did come around, we've almost missed out on because we've moved on to the next thing. And that's just how our brains have worked. And so for me, it feels like we've been talking about this space for a long time. There's books around it. There's all sorts of theories have been floating for a while. And now it suddenly feels like, oh, everyone's talking about it now, but this seems like old news, so it's really tricky. And then I think part of it to me, and I have this real sense of, I don't know how to describe it, but, Zuckerberg's come out there with Meta. And my concern with this was that people would start linking the metaverse to him. And that's obviously why it seems like why he might have gone down this track, right? But someone in the game space actually asked the question, I thought it was just a Mark Zuckerberg thing. And I thought that was so surprising to me, someone who's kind of closer to it, who thought that way. What would the general public think? Because if you think about it, even if you feel sometimes removed from it, you're so much closer to it than the general public, right?
totally.
Some people still haven't tried VR or still don't understand what the metaverse. These are just words being thrown around to them. So again, it's that part of the the fear of missing out. But what does it mean for those people who probably are left behind and get to a stage where they're so far behind that there's no chance of catching up? And I don't want to I don't want to use this so much as a metaphor, but it is a little bit like the property market. It kind of feels like that. Once you're in it, and more and more through it. And then what about all those other people who aren't in it?
And it's that speed through the curve, adoption curve, right?
Yeah. And I always have this feeling of what does that mean for everyone else, for potentially the less privileged in this space, and how can we keep that up somehow? I don't know how to solve that. And a lot of times it feels like, sorry, I've gone down a whole nother track. But I guess for the space itself, I mean, there's so many different ways to realize this, and I feel like some of that's already been happening, but people are thinking it's like a new concept. It's a brand new concept,
Do you remember when you first got into VR?
Yeah, I think it was. I think we got that dev kit in 2013.
Did you proactively grab it, or did a client?
No, we proactively grabbed it. We're always looking out for kind of new technology, not necessarily to use it for client purposes, but we're just in the space. You play games, you look out for new technology. So we were always kind of looking for that. And we saw this kit come out. We're like, this is great. Let's, do a Kickstarter. And then we started using it and going, we can see how that could be used for clients. I mean, we pitch things that are being done now that we were like, well, and it's not to say that any of those were necessarily unique, but it just wasn't the right time for it,
And when did you start Method? Like 2000?
2003. 2003, really? Yeah, a long time ago.
Why did you start it?
So for us back then, we saw a massive gap in the web space because digital was web, basically. That's all it was. We say digital now and it's grown so much. But back then, we just saw these amazing websites being done, these beautiful Flash, if anyone is as old as I am and remembers Flash. Flash websites being done, and we just saw an amazing opportunity to create content online that felt like it had game vibes that you could really delve into that wasn't TV or all the other mediums. And so we wanted to create those for people. We wanted to create these beautiful online stories and spaces for people to come to and enjoy. And that's how we started. And because we were kind of ahead of the curve then, we also were like, okay, well, apps are coming into play, mobile, and so it was a real natural organic thing for us, more so than, we're going to target this, So VR, again, was such an organic thing. We found some amazing piece of technology, and there were ways we could start using it to think about how we could bring client stories to life.
Yeah. Have you always had that edge where you've looked over the horizon for new technologies, and or have you had to work at that?
I think, I feel like I couldn't say that we've always had that edge. It's probably just how we are. Like that's just we're playing games all the time. We're kind of in that space. So for us, it never felt like new and great things. We were just doing that. And so probably not having to work so hard at it, to be honest, maybe more so now, just because of the amount of stuff there is, and because I think we've grown up being across all of new technology, because all of new technology back then was still small clusters. I think there's this pressure to feel like we need to be across all of new technology, or I do anyway, but all of new technology is not this anymore. It's like wider and wider and wider,
It's an interesting reflection generally. How do you choose what to go to activate on?
Yeah, and I think for us in the creative tech sector, in terms of the service side of work that we do, I think it boils down to storytelling. How can we tell these stories? How can we engage people better? And so we always start with that, and then the tech is secondary. So we go, well, how could we engage these people better, this audience better, museum audience better, or whatever it is? And then we go, actually, if this is a story we're telling, this tech can really help it. And so I find that if we always start with that as a premise, then the tech will always follow. So rather than going, we want to fit something to a VR experience, because a lot of times what we've had to do is actually create stuff that didn't exist, And so we did one of the first Xbox Connect hacks. And when I say one of the first, I'm sure people all around the world were probably doing their own firsts as well. But we were like, how can we create this? Oh, well, the Xbox Connect lets you do this. Why don't we create something that uses this technology? So there was a lot of like literally felt like hands-on, soldering work.
It's pretty funny. What's the secret to highly effective storytelling?
I think a lot of it is finding, like we do a lot of workshop work with our clients, and it's really trying to gain those insights about the audience and how audiences connect with content. And sometimes those insights are a lot more obvious than we think. And I'll give an example. We did this workshop, it just sticks in my mind. We did this workshop with Torrens University. We were looking at creating something for them. And we were trying to dig out of them the insights, and they, someone very frustratingly kind of said, we don't have any insights. School leavers and people coming into the space, into high learning from school, don't know what they want. They don't know what they want to study. And we kind of grabbed on that and went, well, that's your insight. If they're not sure, that's what we harness. We kind of go, well, actually, we're here to help you, to advise you. What could we create that would help some of that, would help alleviate some of that? Just, I don't know. And there's a pressure of choosing something to study without knowing what you want to be. And so we kind of played off that, and we created a personality profile in VR, a fun way to find out. There's 6 codes of where your career path might be. And so we use that as a way to create this sort of little game in VR that gave you some insight into that as a person coming in. Now, it wasn't meant to be, this is what you're going to do, but to start that conversation with the Torrens University team to go, this is what I want to look at and explore, because I'm interested in these things,
The art of storytelling is an extraction exercise, right? And it actually is quite unique, right? And if we think about the meta and the Web3 world and the desire to create and build community, I think it's going to be super interesting to see how storytelling is done, because time and time again, I mean, I think our team at Indigo with Pat and Kate are geniuses at there's the dog. I've actually, while we've been talking, my front door has buzzed, and I'm like, where is everyone?
Is it really loud?
No.
Okay, stop.
It's fine. But, the art of storytelling is, and they're a genius. But I think that's going to be super interesting to see, because often people say certain things and they think that's the story, but it's in behind that what matters and the meaning. And that's not easy for founders to do.
Yeah, look, totally. And I think, a lot of the work that we've done on being successful, again, on the kind of more, service side, has been bringing some of those out. And we do, in our workshops, we actually try and speak. I'm well known for speaking a lot. But in the workshops, the point is to let the client speak, and we're there. What's great about it is you get someone who's really, really close to their product, to their brand, and someone like us who are a little bit more removed, but we know our space really well and how to bring content to life. And so we can start to kind of look for nuggets as they talk. And that's the whole point. Is sometimes something they say that they might not have even thought about. And we go, hang on, you've just said that one thing. That's a piece of nugget that we can use. You might have just glibly mentioned it and not thought to concentrate on it.
Yeah.
And I think just on something else on your point that's really interesting is that there's not just one story. It's like saying there's one movie that's going to satisfy everyone and be the only movie and the only story path that you go down. And I think this is the way we also need to look at the metaverse or the various amounts. We can all be in different styles of stories. And I think the biggest thing we found with VR, which is really, really interesting, and it still happens to this day, is a lot of replacing reality. Can you create content that puts you in the middle of in an expo, for example, and make people feel exactly what you would feel as if you're walking through it? Now, you have VR available to do whatever you like. You can put people on the moon. You can, play with that, like use that medium for what it is. And I feel like we could be creating all sorts of worlds for people to dive into, to explore different stories, and I think
0 to 10 on VR and its development, where are we at?
Oh gosh, hard questions.
I've got a lot more hard questions coming.
I feel like we're like 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
I feel like there's so much potential. And the reason I say that, I would say as a whole, that's probably where we are. Some people are further down the track and those are the creators. But I think if you think about general public, we're probably down at a 3. People who have not even explored it, what's available in it. We might still be playing, some people might still be playing with 360 video, and there's so many other options of things you could do. Games are just one component of it.
Are you a gamer?
Yeah, probably less so since I had our son. But
is your son a gamer?
Yeah, we've probably made him into a gamer. Yes.
How old's he?
He's 7.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
He's at school?
He is, yeah. So they've gone back a few days a week.
Oh, we've got school holidays coming up.
It's been helpful, yeah.
Murray Tom talks about opportunities whisper, they never shout at you, right? I'm interested, because you're clearly curious, right, and active. How do you, when you hear things and you see things, do they shout at you or do they whisper at you? And then what do you do with those things that come up?
I feel like I have a lot of, it's the best way to describe it, I have a lot of sparks that happen during the day, and I've always been a real consumer of content. I'm one of those people, I just love to read everything and anything. Like I read the back of a shampoo bottle, the back of a cereal box, because I just love reading. And that is actually a really big problem as well, because right now I'm exposed to so much stuff and I have to read everything. That's just, I don't think it's a FOMO thing. It's just I want to know. And so for me, there's a real big, and I'm still learning. I don't know if I'll ever learn to do this, but I'm always looking at these kind of things that come at me and go, where are the opportunities for me to do something versus which ones I need to leave alone? And I think, it's something that I'm trying to learn to be better at, is learning to say no. And that is also to kind of go, well, actually, yes, I could do all of those things. I can do all of those things. Yes, but do I have to do that to prove anything? What am I proving by doing that? Why don't, say no to more things? And so when there are things being thrown around, and there's a lot in our space, it's actually more thinking about, no, I'm not going to go down that path. We get invited to a lot of
I was going to say
lot of like to be development partners, to exclusive content previews, all of that stuff, and it can become like, we could be in things every day, like it could be in presentations every day for that. So you kind of have to sit back and go, well, no, what is our focus? But in saying that, I think I'm very good at also juggling a few things. Like, I think it's okay to do that. And I was thinking about this the other day and thinking, we're doing something at the moment, a game in VR, so that's Wanderer. This game.
Is that Wanderer? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a VR game.
Is that development for a customer or your?
It's our own IP. Yeah. So we've created a studio called Wanderer. And see, it's really interesting. I think when I was looking at this, I was going, yes, we're doing that. We're doing a game for the Snapchat platform. That's a little bit of a reveal that not a lot of people might know about. And then we also are running our creative tech studio, where we're doing all sorts of client focus work. And I was thinking about it the other day and going, God, I have got my finger in a lot of pies. But the thing is, I guess we've been working towards this for 19 years. We've been in this space. What's probably happened is more that a lot more of this stuff is being realized because other people are now going, actually, we want that content. We wanted to start a original, and we set the brand up about 2010, 2011, an original IP game studio. But it's only really now that we're able to fully realize what that might look like with the content that we're going to start to create. It was
how do you balance a services company and a product company?
I have a really good team around me. So part of the process.
Are they separate?
Yeah, they are separate. Yeah. I mean, there's a few common founders, but we have to run them separately. But the other thing in that is we also have this great opportunity in being able to use what we've learned from running a service business, which actually gives you a lot of great grounding in meeting deadlines and budgets and keeping on track and all of those things, which is great, which I think a lot of people starting businesses just don't think about, right? And we've had that grounding because we've done years of it. But we're almost sort of start to incubate some of these other kind of ideas within that team, and actually asked me before about all the different things coming to me. I have a Trello board where I also make sure a really, really long, my own Trello board where I put in everything. So I try not to necessarily deal with it right then and there, but I put it all in there with links, and then I come back to it regularly and I go, well, actually, is this still relevant? And I know straight away if if it isn't or it doesn't pop, I'll delete it and it's gone. And so I try and do that more instead of having my inbox full of different, I like keeping my inbox really clean.
Tell us about Wanderer.
Yeah, so this is another thing where it might have, like, if some people have said to me, oh, it's popped out of nowhere. Now, we developed the idea for Wanderer back in 2016, and we got a small tranche of funding through the NZ Film Commission's Interactive Fund. It was $25,000. It's nothing to create a game out of. But I think we were just so buoyed, I guess, by the fact that people thought this was a great idea, that they're willing to throw some money at it. So, of course, we spent a couple of $100,000 of our own sort of time and effort and created a really, kick-ass demo. And then we probably spent about 2 years trawling the world, trying to find investors. And look, it was something, again, I thought about that. I don't want this to sound like, there's no malice in this at all, but there are some people who've literally missed out on opportunity. Because back then they were like, I'm not sure about this. What are you guys trying to do in this space? Not sure this will fly, whereas we look at it now and the opportunity that this offers us, and it's massive. But so for 2 years, 2.5 years, we were doing that, and we almost gave up. We were literally on the cusp of giving up. And Wanderer's a joint venture between 2 studios. So our M Theory brand and Odd Boy, which is a game studio, And we were basically, I think, my partner and I, who run M3, we were in LA, in San Francisco at GDC, talking to people about how we can get this funded. And the other guys, the directors from Oddboy, were at Boston PAX. We were all just kind of trying to get this happen. It was our last ditch effort, basically. It was our last big international trip to try and get this happening.
How much money did you need to get to fund it?
Well, we needed, a couple of million, at least. And
Wow.
yeah, and we were thinking we'd start off, because the way Wander was initially intended was episodic, and actually episodes coming out every 6 months. So we thought that might be a good way to get people across it, getting a few 100,000 for each episode, and that might actually get us going, because we wanted to just prove it out. Anyway, a PlayStation executive ended up seeing one of the guys from Oddboy present at Boston PAX. And next thing you know, within 3 months, we've got a deal with Sony. And so pretty bloody amazing.
What do you reflect on that? Because it was kind of like luck out of nowhere, but you put yourselves in the right slot.
Yeah, and I think it is, it's that only, I think of Rachel Hunter, and I shouldn't, but it doesn't happen overnight. But it's that term, overnight success. Overnight success after 15 years of working at something, it's hard, because sometimes it does really feel like it flicks over, but it's all that work you've put into it that enables it to flick over so quickly. If we didn't have a great pitch deck, if we didn't have a great demo, that would have meant nothing on the day, but that one conversation, and it was literally like someone going, I've seen this great game, and yeah, there's a bit of stuff around it that probably, we got lucky. We did.
When does it release? When is it released?
End of January.
Is it ready?
It's almost ready. It's very nerve-wracking, but yes. I mean, and this is the thing, is the team have just done a stellar job. We've created a VR studio, and all that grounding we had running a studio, knowing how to work, has helped us get to where we are. And it's not been without its challenges. COVID is one of them, because as much as game studios work digitally, there's actually a lot more collaboration needed. When you're working on something at the same time, and you're testing and you're trialing and you want to see how something's working, it's really hard to do that remotely.
Really hard. Storyline or plot that you can share, or you can't?
Yeah, of course. And there's a lot on the Wanderer website, so wanderervr.com, a little plug there. But it's a time travel VR adventure game. And so
Cool.
yeah, you discover an apartment, and all of this is on the website, but of course it'll come to life more when you play it. But you discover an apartment and a talking watch, which is essentially your companion throughout it all. We were very conscious with VR that you are by yourself a lot, and it plays out quite differently to other games. So how can we make sure there's something in there with you? And so this watch is your companion throughout it. And you discover that items have memory embedded in them. And so these artifacts take you back through time to the moments they were left behind. And you start exploring different. And of course, with time travel, this is what you do. You go back to, points in history that you want to explore. And we literally do send you to the moon. We send you to a concert very, reminiscent of Woodstock, and it's epic.
It's exciting.
Yeah, I'm playing through, and it's exciting, because you play through and you forget that, and because I'm hands off, day to day, and development wise, I'm not going anywhere near that. But you forget that this is something that we've created, and you see your vision come to life after 5 years.
It's pretty epic.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah, that's when you say Sony PlayStation, and we've been working with them for coming up to 3 years now, but that's a big deal. It
is a big deal.
It's a bloody big deal. We're talking to other partners who want this game on their platform, and 3 years ago, we were trying to find these people, and they're finding us. That's a big
something about getting in the door and getting the credibility, and then other people look at you. And I'm kind of interested, because I'm talking to Jess on Thursday as well. Is there a level of high peak demand by parties and people who want to do JVs and create partnerships for the meta Web3 world? Are you guys fully loaded?
Yeah, look, it's interesting because in the creative tech space, the service space that we're doing, we're a lot more, we're doing a lot more sort of experiential work. There's some really cool stuff happening there as well. And like everything we're doing at the moment is really amazing. And yes, we've had a few approaches actually. Some by very well known, kind of I guess brands at the moment, but what's been a bit tricky is to kind of go, well, is this something that we actually want to be a part of and a partner of, rather than just as a service provider? So we sometimes have to make that distinction. And also, Wonder as a game itself and a studio itself, we have a focus of one game. It's not a game service studio. So for us to take on a game for someone else for the next 2-3 years, that's really tricky. We've got our own IP. We want to keep developing. Wonder in itself has 3 episodes, episodes, I guess. Yeah. And so we want to try and develop that out. Then there's also, in the service space that we do, those are kind of shorter lived projects. So we're trying to divide them up. And this new game studio that I'm creating is very much about inclusive games for everyone, non-violent games for everyone who.
In theory, or a new initiative you've got going?
A new one, yeah.
Which is called?
I haven't got enough to do, so that'll launch early next year.
What's it called?
Not ready to reveal that yet.
Oh,
soon. So only got to do it all with the brand and everything.
Yeah, you got to get that right.
Yeah,
GPs are the worst at looking after themselves.
Yeah, there's an amazing opportunity there. It's building off that off the Snap game that we're doing, which is pretty bloody exciting. And even I hear myself kind of saying some of these names now. 5-10 years ago, we would have gone, oh, is that what we're going to be doing? And it seems like it's happened overnight, but we've worked bloody 19 years for it.
Why is accessibility important to you?
Look, there's a real personal reason for this. From my point of view, I grew up, I came over from Fiji when the coup happened in '88, and we the best way to explain it is we were probably quite well off in Fiji, or doing okay in Fiji, and we came here and it was a completely different world. For us, our worlds changed overnight, and it's probably not something I dwelled on at the time because I was 9. And so, but it's not until now that I realized that actually the path was a lot harder. I didn't necessarily see that at the time because I always kind of went, oh, I want to do this, and how do I find a way to do this? But I think about all the things that I went through, and that's I think about my son having to go through some of the racism things in particular. And it actually, I just can't even imagine him putting up with some of the comments. But at the time, because I don't want to dwell on this too much, but for me, it didn't seem like, as I didn't go home and cry myself to sleep. It hurt, but it wasn't something that I thought maybe, there was a resilience there. And so for me, I very much feel like I somehow through whatever I was doing had a lot of great opportunities that maybe I just ignored some of the other things around it that wasn't letting me through for those opportunities, and made my way through. Not everyone necessarily is like that or has those opportunities, or how can we make sure we can kind of extend that out? I haven't done a very good job of articulating that, but
no, I think you have.
Yeah, I think for me it's really important. I don't see people who look like me in this space. One being female, there's more of the females in the space now. Some amazing people like Jess, but then also person of color. And so I think back to I didn't have those role models. Now, I probably didn't necessarily need them, but maybe if I had them, what difference would it have made? And what about for people now growing up? What difference would it make to them having those role models? I
didn't think, I went to private school, lived in Remuera, Parnell, all that stuff. That I'm not guilty about that, but in 20 years at the Ice House and still, on the board of ventures. But it was only when I spent the time with the Indigo and Manaki crew that I saw it and felt it, and saw the need around creating opportunity. You know, opening windows and going to whānau and community, because it's not accessible.
No, and I think the thing is, I've seen both sides of it. You know, we were probably slightly more privileged where we were in Fiji, just because of what my parents did and who they knew, than coming to New Zealand. And we weren't, you know, it wasn't like this level, but coming to New Zealand, and we were thrown on basically to the other side. You know, like we were in a small house, we were literally living above the breadline. You know. And at the time, I didn't think about it because I was a kid. But there's some things now that I really, really pick up, you know, look at, because there's people around me I can see who go, hey, I've got this great opportunity. Does someone know someone who wants this intern role? And someone's daughter or son who knows this person might go, cool, you know. And so that in itself, how privileged is that? My son will be like that, right? My son will know someone through me, through us, and he'll be able to do that. Now, we didn't have that opportunity. And what does that mean if you don't even know what those opportunities are? And so there's a lot of me also going, should this be, can I just concentrate on what I want to do and keep doing that? But I feel like there's a sense of responsibility that actually, I saw a really great but very cheesy quote about success now means also bringing other people along with you. And I feel like that's got to be something that I have to look forward to. I've actually just recently become a board member of Mix It. I don't know if you've heard about it, but
I have heard about it.
You know, refugee and migrant communities learning how to be themselves through creative performance, and I just love that I can hopefully make a difference, and you know, just by having a few words with someone. And opening up this space for other people to potentially be a part of.
Do you see that there's going to be an increasing opportunity for creative, diverse people in these web worlds? Or is that just a wah-wah comment?
I think by having, and this might sound really bad, but by having almost done it in a tick box mentality, you know, which is, I understand sometimes I'm a tick box, you know, I have been a tick box previously on panels and speaking, and that's fine. Like I get it. It's frustrating that it's not necessarily just for my talent, but because, you know, I fit a certain person that they're looking for. And as much as that's awful, I feel like that's going to help that, you know, like we have to start somewhere. We have to start somewhere. And if that's where we have to start, and we have to start making inroads, then great, you know. But I also really believe that we need to tip the scales. You know, we need to purposefully tip the scales. And I say this, we have to be anti-racist, and we actually have to go out there and make those calls instead of just sitting back and going, I'm not racist, and sit there, you know. And that's just one part of it. But
well, you know, like
actually,
so I totally agree with that. Like one of my buddies who's been on this journey around NFTs is a female, and she's lives in Melbourne, and she was like on Friday, she's like, Hemi, what the fuck? Like, where are all the women? She said, this is just, and I'm like, well, so what do you think? She said, well, I'm going to make sure that we get more women doing NFTs. She said, it's just full of
look,
blah people.
Smiling because, and I don't want to give too much away, but
oh, go on.
Look, that's probably where I'll stop, but you'll be talking to Jess on Thursday. And I think what has come out of the space, I'm not going to say much more on that, but I think what's been really interesting out of the space, and we're talking a bit more about it now as well, is we're all very much in competition with each other, especially in New Zealand. It's been such a small space. You know, when we start out in VR, there's a handful of people. There's 2 clients who want to do it. They don't want to throw any money at it. And you're all going, yay, we want that. And you'll fight for it. And it's awful. You know, you have this like, it's you against us. And I think what's amazing, and it's come out of Wondra, we've collaborated with others. And I think a lot of that is letting go of your ego of being the only and the first of wanting to do this, and actually allowing to collaborate with amazing people. So Jess and I are doing just that. And I'm just super excited about the fact that we're actually, that feels okay to do that, you know, that you're not, that you're not failing, or that you haven't done it all by yourself. It doesn't have to be just about you. And I feel that's very much that's a me thing as well, as there's always so much pressure on myself that I put on myself to be doing that, perfecting that myself,
Brands that inspire and inform you.
Yes. And
any brands that spring to mind that you go, I love what they do? And it can't be brands you've created. Well, it could be that you've created yourself.
I always find this really, really tricky. I always find, I do, because I know there's all these amazing brands that I think outwardly do some amazing work and have some great products and create great content or lead by example. But I feel like there's actually been few and far between who run their companies like what I'd like to aspire to run mine as. I think that's the thing, is I think for a long time we've looked at the output, and that's how our world runs, right? We look at the output. That's a great product, but what does that mean? And Apple's one of those, what does that mean for the team? What's the team had to put up with to get there? And I don't know the insides of, working there. And so for me, it's really hard to kind of make some of those calls when I don't know the ins and outs of what happens in a day-to-day working environment for some of these brands. Outwardly, some of them look amazing, right? But I guess for me, it's about what can we do going forward? And sorry, I haven't answered the question because nothing's really coming to mind. But it's, to me, it's about how you run your business, and looking past the output.
Interesting.
I'll probably think of a whole lot afterwards, but
probably.
Yeah,
probably. But that's
there's
right.
The one guy, Dan Price, who does a lot of social posting, but he put his salary down. And look, I don't know, again, day to day what he does, and maybe he's just great at social posting, but it seems like there's a very inclusive and genuine need to want to ensure that everyone gets ahead, and I think that's really important.
Hope that's a shift, and actually the only way that can be a shift is if people show by example and show that zero-sum games don't work.
Yeah. And I think the thing is, this doesn't mean, because I think about this a lot, and it doesn't mean that you give up the need to be excellent at something. It's not a compromise. This shouldn't have to be a compromise. You don't have to be ethically leading. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can have all of that, and I reckon that's totally possible. You can have great
Wanderer.
Yeah.
If it smokes it, if it goes incredibly well and just kills it, what will you do?
We'll probably make the next one. Look, I think the thing is, I would say the team would need a bloody hard-earned break, but I also believe I feel like, and my partner's very much the same, and he's co-owner and a lot more literally day-to-day on Wanderer. I feel like we'll probably be looking for the next thing. What is the next thing? I have a very personal thing I'd like to do, and this is not at all trying to be overly altruistic, but I would love to see how we could help other people be able to realize their dreams, As I do look for excellence, so that would always come into play, but I feel like we had such a hard time. Now, part of getting to where we are has probably been us having to work hard at it, but I think we've got to change, and this is very much me as well. I had to work hard, so everyone else has to work hard as well. We need to try and alleviate some of that,
if you think about that, like I walked with Aaron, Pat and I went for a walk with Aaron McDonald yesterday around the basin, right? And when you've got leaders like you, him, Jess, and others who are like way ahead on the adoption curve and the technology understanding and all these other things, other people are trying to come up behind and trying to get the patterns to learn. And an effective ecosystem sounds terrible, but an effective ecosystem works out ways how to transfer that IP and knowledge of how to do. Because I think about the immense creativity and difference that exists in our communities, and I go, that's just awesome. But they got no shit show of getting ahead if that don't work out Oh, is this what you do? Oh, that's what you do then. Oh, I need to go and
Mm.
develop that.
Mm.
And so that's, I love hearing you say that, because I think, when I've been trying to toy with what does this NFT Web3 world look like for a 22-year-old game developer who's
Mm.
going through school, going through uni training, going, right, I want to do it now.
Yeah. Or for someone who, and I don't want to stereotype, but this is the best way to explain it, or for someone in South Auckland who might not even
Yeah.
have this on their radar. How can they enter the space? And some of it, I think it's really tricky to say, look, we can build all these frameworks for people to learn off, because some of it is learned experience. Like, you have to actually go through this. You have to actually fail a bit to then learn how to do, what to do next. And so it's something that I've tried to open up with my team. It's really hard for me, like, because making mistakes for me, again, the perfectionism side of me just really struggles with it. But I've had to learn to let my team learn from the mistakes they're making rather than always fix the way they're going, because I've done it before. I know this. I'm like, you know what, you're going to have to learn through the hard way. And there's going to be mistakes coming out of that, some of them very real mistakes. But if you don't learn that yourself, I think if you don't go through that yourself, sometimes it's really hard to embed that knowledge. The other thing I'd say is that, when we started up 19 years ago, startup wasn't even really a word, like it wasn't a thing,
Yeah.
So actually the support that is there now is so much more than what we had. The problem is that there's a lot more pressure, there's a ton more pressure, because I think, younger people are being pushed into being entrepreneurs without necessarily learning how to work or be in an environment to begin with. And I think that's really hard. Like, you kind of have to walk before you can run. Oh my God, I'm throwing all of them out there today. But I feel like sometimes, we have a lot of tech graduates coming to us over the years, and actually what we've noticed is this real shift. This shift happened through some of the universities and polytechs, is that they started teaching how to go straight into business immediately. So we get people coming to us and they wanted to go from here to here really fast. And I felt like you kind of need to be working in the space. You need to know what skill you're developing before you can get here. Otherwise, we've got a lot of people playing here. We've got a lot of people wanting to be leaders, but no followers. And you can't have leaders without followers, and I feel like it's really, really, really important to be doing some of the stuff instead of just jumping from here to being a leader. How can you lead without doing some of that stuff yourself?
It's pretty interesting. Now, shifting a bit, the Microsofts and the PlayStations of this world, in their whatever world that is now, and then all these new meta communities with more free IP ownership and sharing. What's going to happen in the next 5 years? Like, are they going to merge? Is we going to end up with Microsoft in the meta world? Yes.
I mean, yes, and then basically what happens is that these big companies, as they get to a point where they're so big that for them to introduce something new in is really, really tricky. Yes, they might have the resource, they might have the money to do it, but they end up buying, right? We've seen that time and time again. They end up buying because they go, actually, they've already got there. We could just throw some money at them and take them on board and absorb them. And for any company owner, how is that not an attractive thing? How do you say no to something that comes across? But I guess, and I don't know the answer to this. I don't know the answer, but I do feel like I'd love the world to be as free as possible, wherever possible. And I really hate that certain things have a hold on things. But are we too far gone? Are we too far gone into the likes of Facebooks and Instagram and all of that? And what does that mean for new players? And I don't think stops other players coming into the space, but it's kind of like what I was saying before about that property ladder. Once you're on, you're only going to get higher and higher and higher. It's harder for new people to come in. So how can we allow more people to come in and give room for that? And the only way to do that is for these leaders to actually recognize that they need that. Some people won't. They're too ego driven, I'm talking about some of the big players. They're way too ego-driven. They'd rather go and start something new on Mars than think about fixing this current world. And I think that's a real problem. And I wish there were more people who were empathetic in those spaces, than potentially the people that are there now.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's
Sorry,
pretty
very
reflective and it's
philosophical.
pretty true. No, it's reflective. You've got involved in industry good things, right? So we've talked around the opportunity to collab with other people, and then you've put your name up to be on Film Auckland and do things like those sorts of community initiatives. I'm not talking about Film Auckland, but for a action execution focused person in your business and your partnerships, how do you become effective in a industry good representative mode where you may not have the ability to pull the levers as much?
I think part of that is, again, that learned knowledge. So running a business, so as part of Mix It, we had our strategy day the other day, but a lot of that, there's so many commonalities that you can start to find. And so you look for those threads. And for me, it is a lot of, and I do struggle to listen sometimes, but it is a lot of listening. There's a lot of
Do people tell you that?
No, I think I probably tell myself more than others do. Maybe some people. But I think again that's probably years of doing certain things and going, oh, I know something about this, because you're just older and you have more experience on it. But I think there is a lot of listening and absorbing things, and taking that on board and then putting ideas in. And that's all you can do, is you can try some stuff, because sometimes I think I find I move at a certain pace, and I'm very much like, if I want something, I want it done now. I think sometimes you just have to learn to kind of pull that back, but also realize that some people do work at a different pace. Some things do sometimes take a bit longer, and that's okay.
How have you managed, lockdown, the merger of family work, remote working, everyone being at home? How's that managed for you and your family unit?
I think there's been great days. On the whole, we're doing really well. But again, I'll put this back down to privilege. We're in a great house. We've got some outdoor space. We have access to things that other people don't. And I know some of my team are in apartments who don't have. And so I always kind of think of that, and I always think that I'm always on the side of being luckier than most. But it's been tricky, like there's definitely with a 7-year-old, and he's amazing, but part of that resilience has been built up. And here he is. Part of that resilience has been built up with him having, thanks, buddy, two parents who've been in the space. He's traveled with us. I've taken mum with us to help us babysit when he was 2 and 4, when we were going out and putting Wanderer and trying to get funding for it. So he's actually built up a lot of that resilience. And so interestingly enough, I started writing a blog, and then of course, didn't get time to finish it last year when we went into lockdown, is that actually our lives felt like they've always run like this, in terms of it being busy with a lot of stuff on. It is harder having trying to manage the day with, sorry, my son's literally right here, with someone, with another person who I think you just have to be conscious that they're on screen all the time. And how?
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
I'm in the middle of something, buddy.
That's all good. We don't mind interruptions. Interruptions are all good.
He's written me a note.
We need
Do
to
not
mix.
come in here. It is messy, or you will step on the Lego.
Yeah, there you go. Good.
I thought it was a ransom note for a minute, but yeah.
Have all things been successful for you?
No. Who talks about those though?
No.
And I guess this is the thing. There's been moments when, and I have to say, I think this word gets thrown a lot in our space, but resilience, and we're so proud of how resilient we are. I'm really proud of how resilient I am, but that's not necessarily something that everyone has or can be, and it's built up, right? But actually, and I hate to admit it, but there's been times that I just feel like, what is the point? Like, You
Do you know the interesting
literally-
thing with this though is that I bet you your crew, right, your staff, your partner, like your mates in the system who know you will embrace you and uphold your resilience and when things have gone hard, and they'll know when things are going hard and they'll be there for you. I wonder at times whether it's the rest of the voices and the people that don't know you shoot and pop, and so then we just I don't know.
I know exactly what you mean, and I think it's really what's the word? I think the thing is, why are we valuing those voices more than the ones close to us? Like, why do you value them more? Which is really weird, right? Because sometimes you do inwardly value them more. Because if someone close to you says, "Oh, but you're amazing," how much weight does that hold? Because they already know that. Do you want other people to? And I'm always like, I want everyone to like me. So for me, it's always about, but why are we like that?
Funnily enough, I'll be careful with my language, but a lot of my mates think. A lot of my mates, a lot of people who don't know me think I don't give a fuck about their opinions, and I don't actually. And I don't mean that in a bad way or a disrespectful way. I know who I am, and I'm, I know I've got to always take my edge off, around people that don't know me, and that's fine. And you just kind of manage that. Now, for you, you've raised capital successfully for Wanderer. Do you ever think about what it's like for founders to raise capital?
Yeah, I mean, I know it was really hard for us. I know if we didn't have a studio and we weren't able to hire someone and basically put our own earnings into that person to do a demo, I don't know what it was bloody hard. And also really hard when you have to look outwardly for someone to help you. Like, that's a personal thing. For someone else to help is really hard, no matter who that person is. Where to go. This is embarrassing. But this is how I feel about it, is we had to go to my parents for money a few years back because the business just wasn't doing great. It's so embarrassing to share this. But that's really hard to do for people, for some people, and others maybe not so much. But I think I was brought up a certain way. So for me, it all needed to be me that drove it, And I think, you brought a really good point up, but I feel like I definitely have one rule that I try and place for myself. There's a lot of things you'll hear about other people, opinions and people's reckons and all of that. And it's really, really easy to feed into that. It's really easy to form your opinion on someone based on things you've seen and things you've read. And I just try and always go, look, I haven't met that person. I haven't talked to them. I can't form these opinions. It's hard to say that, though, because I do feel like sometimes I'm like, yeah, that's what I might think. And that's what that person has said. And I trust that person and I will take on that. But until I've met them, I will not finish forming my opinion of them. And yes, I might get burnt through some of that because I've gone, actually, they were right. But I feel like you shouldn't do that until you've met that person,
So true. Do you ever go back to Edgewater College?
No. No. I mean, we haven't lived in Pickering for a very long time. So we're actually more outside of the space than we, are in the space. But,
so just as we draw to a close, I always ask people to take yourself back to the 15-year-old student at your school, and what advice would you give him or her today as they look into this world?
I mean, the advice I'm going to give is probably advice I still need to carry myself. You've got to stop looking at other people to validate you. I think, yeah, and I think that's really for me personally, you can give yourself a really tough time, that self-talk. And I've seen quotes, and I won't do them any justice, but why are we so harsh on ourselves? We're the harshest on ourselves than anyone around us can be. And it's that self-talk. Why are we so negative? Imagine if someone was in the same position you were in, and I am an empathetic person, I believe. If someone was in the sort of position I've been in, would I talk to them in the same way that I'm talking to myself, And it feels strange to me that you talk to yourself in a very different way. than you would other people.
It's a very powerful way to end our discussion, and I think it's a great piece of guidance for people, right? Because if you are kinder to yourself and you back yourself, then you will find that path. And whatever that path is, you'll be happy with that path too, because there are a lot of people who are unhappy in this world, right? And I think that's very, very, very powerful. And so, do you get Christmas holiday?
We are taking some time off, but seeing as we are launching a game on the 27th of January and a new studio soon after with the Dunedin office as well, I feel like it might be a bit of laptop time on the beach. I'm
going to message my lifelong friend who's vice president of Sony PlayStation, just moving to Singapore to head up Asia office, Warwick Light. So I'm going to message him. He's just about to get on the plane from London. So
hopefully he can tell you if there's any good vibes around this. I'll tell you one thing has been, this is probably not a great way to end it, but one thing that's probably been a little bit of for us has been, in hindsight, probably quite good, is the fact that we haven't been able to travel that much because of how busy the last couple of years have been. Hopefully we can just save up our travel for in a couple of years' time when we can actually have time to do that.
Where's the first place you're going to
go? We had this amazing trip booked to Sri Lanka. I'd done the itinerary, spreadsheets all around. Had booked a whole lot of space for Christmas last year, and I want to do that. Like, it was just,
Do you use Excel or Google Sheets?
I use Excel, and then I have this thing called TripIt, which I load everything in. I'm a geek. Don't even get me started. Yeah, very
love
much.
it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice to? I think we're trying to get to Australia in January to see my wife's family, who we haven't seen for 2 years, and it's got to be done when the time is right.
My family are all in Sydney as well, so my son spends a lot of Skype time with my mum online every day. So we're keen to see them again as well.
Be special. Hey Sam, thank you very much for being so open, sharing, inspiring, and excited to see how Wanderer is released in the new year.
Cool. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
You too.
See you, mate. Take it easy, eh? See ya. Thanks, everyone. See you soon.